Okay, welcome to showcase number 112. We have a couple things to go over today. Instead of showing off some of the more flashy things I had this week, I wanted to show off more elaborated things, I guess, deeper things, in a way, if that sounds pretentious at all. Anyway, the reason is because we're kind of in that refinement period. We've been in that refinement period, and I wanted to really show you guys some of the more, I guess, depth increasing or depth encouraging things that we've been working on, or I've been working on. Specifically, first of all, debuffs. So debuffs have been made more visual and more apparent. In addition to RP EXP, which will be after that clip, or after this intro rather. And then at the very end, we'll talk a little bit about the base, clothing, weapons, overlays, and funding, and the usual outro stuff where we talk about this week, next week, etc., etc. So, very cool. And we're going to go ahead and jump right into it, right after I say, first of all, this red box is not a outline, or a target outline. I saw recently in a Discord some people were talking about it, and I realized people thought that this was a targeting outline. It is not. It's a hitbox, and I realized I haven't really explained that too much recently. So I just wanted to make sure you guys knew that this is not going to be in that final game, and the floating hair also is not going to be in the final game for the record. Anyway, this red box is literally just a hitbox. It's to show me where it is, and obviously it needs to be readjusted to the new base. I just wanted to make sure you guys knew about that because clearly some people were worried about that, and I wanted to dissuade that worry. Anyway, the other one thing that I want to mention before we get to the debuff bar, which is new and very cool in my opinion, is the base is currently what I call skinless, which means there's no outline on this base right now, and also it has a north and south state. I'm going to be talking about this more in a second, so don't worry at all about that. If you see me move, it'll be explained at the end of the video and end of showcase. If you're most curious about that, feel free to skip ahead, but for right now we're just going to be talking about debuffs, and I'm going to go ahead and click, or rather tap 3 for the stun. You can see at the top of the screen up here we have a little debuff indicator. So it ticks down, of course, as you'd expect, and I'm going to talk real quick while this comes back up, but this will work with multiple debuffs. It works exactly as you expect it would. It stacks up to, I believe, 10 or 11 debuffs total, and if you have 11 debuffs on you, you're having some problems. I really don't think that we're going to get up to 11 debuffs, especially in this fast-paced kind of game. You really aren't going to be stacking out that many, because they typically last for only a couple seconds. But if I go ahead and hit Graceful Step, which slows you at the end of the duration, I can show you the double. There you go. They do stack up a little bit too much right now, so I'm going to space them out, but that's kind of a tweaking thing. They also tell you the remaining duration, so if you have a debuff for an hour, it'll tell you 1 hour, or 1H, whatever. And it'll also tell you the minutes, the seconds, etc., as much as fits in that little tiny box up there. And in addition to that, it'll also show you non-conventional debuffs. So debuffs that aren't currently used are blinds, confusions, that kind of thing. And it also shows you, like you've already seen, cauterize, which is a burn, and a couple other things like that. So I believe chill. So ice is chill, will tell you how many stacks you have as well, which is really cool. And I'm going to be implementing that for burns as well, which I think is very neat. I'm very happy about that. However, it's not all. So if we go ahead and click ourselves here and target ourselves, I think I have to tap Alt first. There we go. Or oops, I added myself to my party. There we go. Which is something you can do right now because you're allowed to target yourself. I'm allowing myself to target myself because really there's no other way to test this very easily right now. If I hit another person with Fireball, they get knocked across the world. So in my opinion, it's just easier this way. But anyway, there is also an enemy debuff bar. This is a little bit less specific, and it's also a lot smaller than your debuff bar, but if I go ahead and just tap Cauterize real quick, you can see it pops up. As you can see, again, less specific, so it doesn't tell you the remaining duration. It might in the future, but for right now, I think it's okay if it just tells you that they have that debuff. It's not really meant to be like a timing thing, as much as it is saying, hey, they're still stunned, or they're still slowed, or whatever else, so you know exactly what's happening to them. I might elaborate on this in the future, but for right now, I think it's okay as it is. We can continue cycling through these a little bit. Anyway, it's not really that complicated, but I felt like it should be shown off anyway. In addition to that, also on your sprite, currently we're still using the old icons, but I'm going to be using some other icons from the same asset pack that I used for these, for the debuff bar, on your sprite. So it should be really apparent what debuffs people are afflicted with. In-game specifically, you will show your top 2 most important quote-unquote debuffs. So if you're stunned, it'll show the stun over the slow and that kind of thing. And that'll show for everybody in your, or it should show for everybody on your screen. So I think I'm ready to say that this is a mostly complete system as soon as I swap out those icons. Generally speaking, if a spell doesn't have a nice noticeable effect, you'll at least be able to tell what it's doing to you CC wise. You'll be able to tell what it's doing to someone else CC wise. You'll be able to tell what your CC is doing to your target specifically with more depth and detail. And I think that's pretty great. That's kind of like a very fundamental MMO feature that we have going on. So I'm really happy about that. The only other thing is probably I want to have a tooltip. So when you say are burned, I want you to be able to mouse over this or click it or something like that and see what it does. I think that's a little bit overkill because you really aren't going to have that kind of MMO period of time where you're sitting there doing nothing for like 10 seconds and are allowed to like, freely look at your debuffs and CC and so on. But we'll see. I'm not sure. I think it would still be a cool feature and something nice to add, but anyway, without further ado, I think that we're ready to move on. We're going to be talking at length about RP EXP because I figured you guys would really care about that. Last time you seemed to be really passionate about it, and I think that it would be kind of stupid of me not to go further in depth on that. So I explained that in full detail there, and then after that we're going to be talking a little bit about the base and, like I said, all the usual outro things like funding and so on. So I hope you enjoy. Alright, so for this clip, we're going to be taking a really brief moment to talk a little bit about RP bonuses and XP bonuses because I've added a couple to this list, and I talked a lot at length about how I wanted to boost for ideal post length and group size and if you're RPing first and stuff like that, but I feel like those are kind of expected almost. Those aren't really too crazy, and I went more in depth on that in questions if you want to check that out, but TLDR, you get a bunch of bonuses on your posts depending on situations around you, depending on how you're RPing and that kind of thing. And again, I talked a lot about that with, I believe it was Mouth Guy. I'm pretty sure, maybe it was Baz. But anyway, the whole gist of that conversation was the ideal, quote-unquote ideal post lengths are not really there to punish people who aren't RPing the right way. It's just to promote people who are RPing in like an average kind of way, right? The whole system is designed to make you feel good about RPing, and that's the ultimate goal. So I don't really put this in place just to make it harder for people. So if that's your concern, please do not worry about that. It is not a huge deal, and if it is a huge deal, it will be fixed. So that's my consensus on that. However, I did want to add a couple more bonuses because one thing I always felt was really kind of annoying was every day when you log on, you have a pretty sizable road in front of you, I guess you could say. It takes a long time to build up some checks, some RP, whatever, and for that reason, I've decided to add a kind of daily bonus. So for the first period of time that you're RPing, right? So like, let's say that you RP early in the day, and you log off for 8 hours. If you log back on, you will get what's called a daily bonus after those 8 hours are up. This scales, it doesn't scale, it explicitly is non-scaling up to 16 hours, meaning if you log off for 8 hours or 16 hours, you get the same bonus, and that bonus is going to be sort of big. It's going to be probably worth 2 posts on your first post, and it's just something to get you kicked off for the day, right? It's just something to say, hey, this is your first post of the day, I want you to feel good about that, so get online, get RPing, etc. And to that length, that's sort of what this is intending to do. So this is also on top of, or rather, this is on top of the existing system for catch-up XP, which I've already talked a lot about, but TLDR, depending on which one of these brackets you're in, you'll get a different bonus to kind of help you catch up a little bit. It should be noted that these bonuses are probably not going to really even come close to someone who's been online RPing 24/7, of course. That wouldn't be very fair, but they are going to be pretty significant if you consider, what it would be like if you didn't have any of these catch-up bonuses. So also, none of these stack, so you can only have one at a time. If you're offline for 5 days, you aren't going to be getting a daily bonus, you're just going to be getting the catch-up bonus, if that makes sense. But there's also now something called RP activity. So when you RP, you add about an hour, maybe 30 minutes to an hour to an existing timer up to a cap of 4 hours, that just sets your state to RP active, which means that you are recently RPing, and that'll expire within, again, like an hour. So if you RP 4 times, you will get, of course, 4 hours of RP activity time, and what that means is you are just constantly getting a very small amount of constant XP. This is, again, not really something that should be worried about too much because, for one, I'm lowering the base post rewards across the board. just to help manage these bonuses. And also, this specific one is going to give a very small amount of constant XP. I think at high levels, like 180 to 100, this is going to be such a small decimal that you probably won't even notice it happening, which is okay. That's intended. It's just supposed to be something that kind of, if you're in a long scene, everybody's taking like 10 years to post, you at least can get some, solidarity out of the fact that you are still getting XP, you're not losing progress or anything like that, and you can relax a little bit. And again, that's the whole point of this system, is to help you relax. And of course, the last but not least, is white text EXP. So this is what it's called in Eternia, but it's say chat, so IC text is just going to give you a small amount of XP based on your level. And this will be the same across all levels, or rather, it'll scale to all levels. So at level 100, you'll get like 2% or something of your level, and so on and so forth. These all have cooldowns, or rather, RPs and white texts have cooldowns, so you won't be able to get XP from white text for probably like a minute or two, or something like that. The reason being, I think that it would be better or more enjoyable for me to add a higher bonus to white text but add a cooldown than a very small bonus to white text but no cooldown. And then, of course, posting has to have a cooldown, which might be like 3 minutes, I think. I'm not sure. Other than that, I think that we're good on this stuff. I just wanted to bring you guys up to speed because I've been adding a ton to this over the past week or so, and I've been kind of developing it and thinking about what works best and so on, because I really want it to feel good. In addition to that, I also have one more thing to say before we go on to the next clip, which I think is going to be based on the base, ironically, which is cheating, anti-cheat. So some of you guys had some concerns about this in the questions channel, like I mentioned, and I just wanted to reassure you that this is not something, the anti-cheat specifically is not something that most people are ever going to encounter. When I said this is not going to be encountered by anyone that isn't cheating, I really wasn't kidding. If it's a more specific case of cheating, like someone doing something more clever, then it's going to be an admin and moderator focused effort to find that person and figure out they're cheating. If it's literally someone trying to post the same post 8 times in a row, that's something that this will catch. And the reason this system exists is because, of course, I can say, and I am saying, if you post exactly the same thing 2 times in a row, it'll just not post the second time or not give you XP the second time. However, people will try like 10 characters off, or like they'll alter a sentence or something like that. So this system will check for large similarities between posts, and if you're doing that constantly and it detects that, it'll lower your XP, and eventually it'll have to be unlocked by an admin. Again, this is not something people will worry about. This is something that if you are literally like copying out of Harry Potter, like one section 8 times in a row, that's when you have to worry about it. And in that case, I would wager you should have to worry about something. It would be a little weird if you didn't. But anyway, I know this isn't super exciting, and I know I took some other features out of the showcase for this specifically, but I feel like this is what you guys care about most, or I imagine it's something that you guys care about a lot because of how active you guys got over it in questions. And also, it's like what you do. You're role players, we're all role players, and you like writing. So I figured I should explain more in depth on this stuff and so on. Whatever the case, I hope it wasn't too math intensive. We're going to move on now to the base and talk a little bit about that and what I've been doing there, and progress on clothing, some related stuff to that, and how funding's going, that kind of thing. Might be just kind of like a long outro, we'll see. Alright, so finally today we're going to be talking a little bit about the base and what I'm doing with the base, and a couple of things you've seen with the base today, as well as clothing, overlays, weapons, etc., and a little more in depth about what's coming next week, etc., what's coming in general. So we'll just go ahead and start. The first thing is now there's a north and south state and east and west, and this is not particularly special. Of course, the base should have all of these states. Currently there's not the sprint state, but I was mainly doing this for testing. The important thing here is now the base is split into a foreground, midground, and background, which means the arm can overlay over the chest, and like if you have, say, a chest piece on like a, I don't know, armored chest plate, and it only goes up to the shoulder, like it doesn't go past the shoulder, that is, you can still see your arm over top of it, and you can see the arm over top of the torso of the chest piece. That probably doesn't make any sense, but that was a surprisingly difficult issue to overcome. However, it's solved, and I know exactly what I need to do with it, so no big deal. I just had to figure that out. Same for north and south, which is why it's kind of special that they're in game now. And also, It's also why there's no outline currently. I'm just waiting for Veek to make a change so that I can have it so that the outline goes around all of the overlays together instead of each overlay individually, which means that it'll it'll outline the entire thing, I guess you could say. And in addition to that, I'll be adding this print state soon because that's not an issue anymore. I was just trying to figure out the foreground, midground, and background thing. And once that's done, or rather, I mean, even before that's done, I can get some clothing done. So I'm going to be doing that with Howell. He just finished up the bows. If you're a fan of my Twitter, or if you don't hate Twitter in general, like I kind of do, and like most people should, then you can check out my Twitter because Howell recently posted a picture of all the bows, which I think are fucking beautiful, frankly. Pardon my French. And I've also been posting the spears, the swords, etc. So if you're curious about that, feel free to check it out. I've retweeted Howell's post so you can see it on my Twitter as well. And of course, give him likes. His art's great. But anyway, that's cool. And I wanted to make note of the fact that I recently figured out that I think we'll be able to have the option of hip wielded swords. So instead of the anime on your back style swords, we'll be able to have them on your hip. This might be an option in the future. I'm not totally sure. I can't promise anything on that yet. But I think that we're going to have the wands on the hip, always. The staves on the back, the books on the back, and then swords will be on your hip, spears will be on your back, and bows will be on your back as well. So that's my thought right now. I'm not totally certain just yet, but that's what I'm thinking. And I think that should be really cool. And it won't be hard at all, too, which is really cool. Like, it's actually relatively simple to do, which I'm a huge fan of. Ultimately, it's only possible due to spine, because we literally just slap the sword on there and it tracks the whole body as it moves and rotates and so on. So, super hype about that. Anyway, other than that, I think that's most of what we have to talk about with the base. It's really just a waiting game now. I'm going to try to go slow with Howl, because it is kind of a learning experience. It's not really like a very self-explanatory system, so I'm going to walk him through that and everything, and we'll see how that goes. Other than that, we're good. This up here, for the record, is intended, just in case you're worried about that. I just realized that, but anyway, that's because there's a higher water layer here, which allows it to layer on top of the lower water layer, but whatever the case, I think that's everything for the base. I just wanted to go over that really quick, and I think that's everything. The only other small nugget of information I guess I could give you is equipment in general will be fixed up soon. I fixed up the coin inventory, the regular inventory, all other inventories and furnaces and so on, and the equipment inventory, which is where all of your equipment is stored, obviously, is going to be the next one on the chopping block. So once that's done, you'll be able to equip shirts and everything, and I think this week I'm going to be working specifically on getting outfits like integrated. So we'll have some of the existing outfits that Doom's drawn implemented, and then I'll get Howl to do some cool knight armor and stuff like that, so we can really demonstrate how cool and advanced Spine is. And once all that's done, I mean, we'll be ready to go, really. I mean, that's a bit of an exaggeration. We'll have some testing to do and everything, but like that's like the step. That's like the big thing that's really waiting for us. And again, all that really takes is probably a week or two of Howl's time, and of course with outfits interspersed, and a day or so for me to fix up the equipment inventory and then also make shirts and stuff a specific slot. So I'm really excited about that. I think you guys should be too. It's really promising, and I'm really looking forward to it. Other than that, I think we're good. Funding is good. Funding is surprisingly pretty good during coronavirus. The Patreon really hasn't dropped that much, which is great. I'm personally doing okay, and I just wanted to let you guys know that because I know you worry sometimes. So, stay safe and everything. There was one other thing. Oh, right. So, I wanted to say, because I know that some people prefer the sword on the back, I might have that as a toggleable option. I already mentioned that sort of, but I'm really fond of the idea of being able to swap between that for things like the wands and the swords, especially the sword, basically, because everyone is very divisive about that. So we'll see. I'm not totally sure about that just yet, and I'm not promising anything, but I'm hoping we'll be able to, approach something like that level of customization. So I'm really happy about that. Again, I hope you guys are too, and I hope you guys really look forward to next showcase, because I think that we'll have a lot of cool stuff to look over then. Mostly clothing, mostly cool knight armor, and that kind of thing. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you have a great day. Hope you have a great week, and stay safe.